Um, okay, I think we're live. I think so. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Jeanette, also known as Misfit Vegan. I am here with the one and only Professor Spira. So this is exciting. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yes, before we get started, I want to let you know I did get the book. I have all your books, but I did not have this book.
Yeah,
I was hesitant for like 15 years now because I was like, I don't need a picture book, but it's so much more than that. Um, Dude, I learned so much, and I'm up to the part about Benedict Lust, who I never heard of. Spira, this is really important shit because
yeah,
they were living this lifestyle years ago, and this is the story about how all of these naturopathic doctors were getting arrested for giving people, colonics and massages and natural heal herbs and putting them on a fruit-based diet. And can you just talk about that for a second? This whole thing about Benedict Lust and what was happening back in the early 1900s?
yeah. Lust, some people call him the father of naturopathy. Sometimes I'll give that to Arnold Ehret, or I'll call Arnold Ehret the godfather of naturopathy, because Lust was connecting with Arnold Ehret and hugely inspired by what Ehret was doing with his sanitariums and his methodologies. And then Lust became the first person to really formalize what we call naturopathy, to formalize a school and create an educational process where somebody could learn how to become a practitioner of naturopathy. But with all of these, any of these pioneers, you go back and you read the history, you look at what they had to deal with. It's the same kind of nonsense that we deal with in terms of the censorship and the lawsuits or the laws being created and passed to try to suppress the viability and the exposure of this information. And to the extent that that's why so many of us believe that Professor Arnold Ehret was assassinated, because nobody saw it happen. And then the whole storyline is super strange and weird. And Benedict Lust wrote about that in his versions of the mucusless diet healing system. He talks about that this was, it was a little strange. It was his first time Ehret wore some shoes that were slick and oil soaked ground, and he fell on his head and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, no, that kind of stuff was happening. In the case of Arnold Ehret, he he had a kind of personality, along with the results that was in Southern California, was creating this movement, creating this kind of thing where he was getting this power as the leader of a movement. And they're like, man, we can't let this get out of control. We gotta suppress it, because Arnold Ehret's bringing the receipts. Benedict Lust is bringing the receipts. These guys had the people with real testimonials, with real transformation, and all the powers that shouldn't have been. And there's the whole Rockefeller histories, and there's all these different rabbit holes you can go down and understand that we are living in the end result of that. And so that it better informs us of why things are the way they are,
Yeah.
and how to move forward cautiously, but also why it's so important for us to come together as a community and learn these things, teach each other these principles, and live how we want to live. Because if you're waiting on permission from doctors and nutritionists to eat in a way that's going to sustain your life and to heal yourself naturally, you will be waiting a very long time forever for that permission.
Well, they're going to tell you that's too much sugar. So you don't want to get diabetes from eating grapes, you know? That's what they're
Right,
going to tell you.
right.
So this is so important. Thank you so much for this recommendation because I love to learn the history and know that this is not a new thing, that we're being ostracized and being criticized as, people eating natural foods and looked at like we're crazy by most of society. This is not a new thing. They were arresting people. Okay, this was a big thing, and it kind of went quiet for a while, and now it's back. The the movement of eating natural foods. And of course, Arnold Ehret, the mucusless diet healing system, which you are a practitioner of for
Well,
the.
real quick, another
Yeah.
little piece. So there's that part. Then in the 1960s, if you trace, that's why those articles are called hippie roots and this kind of stuff. You trace the so-called Back to Nature Renaissance, Back to Nature movement into the 60s. That's when all of this consciousness started to become mainstream. But what happened when it did that? There's there's proof out there for folks that want to get into the research like the CIA and these LSD ops and this kind of stuff that there was an effort to infiltrate what started off to be a plant-based fruitarian consciousness, natural way of living, being naked in the sun, getting your sun baths. It started off with that consciousness, and somewhere the free love and drugs was like a psyop was inserted into what was a clean, that there was not this talk of, oh, let's just everybody have sex with everybody else and we'll just raise in this if children happen, we'll raise it in this communal. It's like all this kind of stuff that came about in the 60s and the laziness. There's no Arnold Ehret and any of these guys that you read about. There's no legacy of laziness of this like, but then you look at the stereotype of the hippie from the 60s, it was just like, smoke some weed, man. We're living off the land. We don't really care about nothing, peace and love. It was like that's the stereotype as opposed to these were people that were super sharp, studying, reading all the time, working all the time, physically, so it's
Yeah.
yeah, so it's important to
Yes.
renew that legacy, understand why it fell apart in the 60s, because it was designed to fall apart. They didn't, when it started going mainstream, they didn't want the whole, because it would have overturned the status quo of society. That whole thing would have been like, we're done with this. So it's like make it look goofy, make it fall apart, and then when you get into the 80s, it was all over. It was like by the time you get to the 80s, it was done. They had won.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how much Benedict Lust did in his life. And also, I didn't know he was really responsible for bringing Arnold Ehret to America, really, with his translating the book, right? Like he translated the Mucusless Diet.
He's
And
one of the trans. That's where the history of that gets a little interesting because he became one of two or several different people that published Arnold Ehret's work, but that gets kind of in the weeds of Fred Hirsch. And so
right.
there's the history of Fred Hirsch, which I can't remember is in the book or not, but I have an article on, I think it is in the Arnold Ehret section where they talk about Fred Hirsch, but I have that article up on the which I think was written a little bit separately, but I'll send you a link to that. But from my website. But so you have Fred Hirsch who became Arnold Ehret's right hand man, and then uh, basically ran Ehret literature. And then Benedict Lust also published of his version of the mucusless diet. And when you compare those two versions, the core
Right.
materials are the same, but there's certain things that are a little different. And so there were certain articles and certain things that I think Lust translated. Then there was other things that Fred Hirsch translated. Some things and because see the translations, what some people don't understand, the mucusless diet healing system was written in English by Arnold Ehret, and so that's one
Oh,
of
I
the
didn't
reasons.
know. Oh,
Yeah, rational
oh,
fasting was German, and that was translated. Some of these early articles were
wow.
originally written in German. Kranke Menschken, and which cause and cure of human illness is what that was called later, translated later. Uh, so there was a number of things. His early things were in German, but then the mucus's diet healing system was written in English by Professor Arnold Ehret.
Okay, thank you for that. I didn't know. Okay, let me ask you. I want to get into salt. So, everybody, this is going to be mostly about salt, but I do have some questions that I've been wanting to ask you. One, we have some people, some influencers on the internet that are eating only fruit. But they're also eating nuts because they are classified as fruits in their opinion. And I'm curious, do you consider nuts fruit? Do you eat nuts? Are they healthy? I mean, I know they're mucus forming, right?
Yeah.
All nuts are mucus forming. So do you eat nuts? Are they considered fruit?
So
I want to know.
no, they're not. I don't consider them fruit. So I'm not using. My definition of fruit is very, food-based fruit. So I don't have this kind of expansive culinary, or where I guess you could say the culinary definition as opposed to the actual genus and species type of thing, which again, this starts getting into these definitions that people hold on to with dear life, their identity. Like, I want to be a fruitarian so bad. So, but I crave mucus. So what am I gonna do? Okay, nuts are fruit, and these things.
Quinoa or
Yeah,
whatever, buckwheat,
yeah,
whatever.
but yeah, buckwheat and well, even just yeah, wheat. They'll be like, oh, well, that's fruit. They call that fruit, the germ or whatever. It's like, cucumber is free. It's all this kind of stuff. And for me, it's simpler just to be like, well, I practice the mucus diet healing system. Nuts have a place in one's transition, but it's transitional. And as you change your physiology, you get to a point where you can't eat nuts or certain nuts you're not going to be able to tolerate anymore. And uh and and so that's all part of, and you would never eat nuts by themselves without something like raisins, dried fruit, because again, we're thinking and being very conscious of elimination. And in order to help nuts eliminate well, because that fat, it's you need something to help it get through the system and digest, and that's where the dried fruit comes in. But yeah, no, I have a real just culinary kind of fruit analysis, and generally don't, for me, it's I define and look at the food items based on how they eliminate, how I'm using them. So I don't eat tomatoes like they're fruit. If I'm going to use tomato or if I'm going to use cucumber, I use them as vegetable, whether it's in a green juice. If I make a green juice, that's a vegetable juice. I'm not mixing a bunch of fruit and vegetable together. Uh,
Why not? Why not?
well, one, they don't, the cleaner you get, you start to notice that you can get gas and bloating, and it's more complicated and confusing for the body. As you get cleaner, the body really appreciates the simplicity of not confusing it, putting so many combinations and things together. And when you bring in fruit and vegetable at the same time, then you're going to have problems. So even there are times when you can have a meal that has a fruit course where you would eat the fruit course, wait 15 to 20 minutes, and then have your salad. It's perfectly fine to do that if you're in the two-course meal part of your transition, but that's a very important principle to follow, where you would never want to mix all these things together. And I see that sometimes when people take pictures there, they got like an avocado sitting here and there's some grapes and some and like some melon, and I'm like, who taught you that? Like, don't, that's horrible.
Even people, and you're going to be joining us at the Woodstock Fruit Festival next year. I'm so excited. So it's a long way away, but it'll be here soon. And I have to say, the things I see people eating at the festival, I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You want to really mono meal as much as possible, especially if you're trying to have like perfect digestion, amazing energy, and you also will become so much more satisfied that way. And when you're at Woodstock, guys, mono meal on the things that you can't really mono meal on in the real world, like figs. Like I
Mm,
mono meal on figs because how am I going to afford, 50 figs in the real world,
real good fresh
or
fig, yeah.
find ripe,
Hmm.
locally grown, amazing figs. So like I always do that, and then I see people with the half an avocado and a watermelon slice, and then a banana, and then some cinnamon rolls, and then some.
Cinnamon rolls. What,
Yeah.
like raw cinnamon rolls or
They're
something?
made from bananas, dates, and cinnamon. But
Okay.
like they're dehydrated and they're with the watermelon and they're with, and I'm just like, No, don't. But okay, now, thank you for that. We have a question from Citrus Simon. Thank you for asking this because I want to ask this, but everyone keeps asking me, but I don't want to answer. So Spira is
Mm.
going to answer. There are some raw vegans promoting processed sugar as health food. What does, I don't want everyone to hate me, so I don't want to answer this. What does adding processed sugar do to the body over the long term, Professor Spira? What are your thoughts on this processed sugar promoting stuff?
Yeah, well, first, I can't believe people do that. I don't know where that started or why that. I think that comes out of the calorie theory, which we've destroyed in the past. I know some people love it. They like if you like the calorie theory, then you enjoy it, fine. But for me, it ends up giving you that type of explanation where if it's just all about calories, like, oh, refined sugar, rice. I see some of these folks having meals of rice, which is all the way mucus forming, just glue. Like that's one of the things you want to get rid of
Yeah.
immediate as soon as you can. In turn, you don't even transition off of rice; you just get off of it. Uh, yeah, no, any kind of concentrated or refined sugar, that kind of stuff is not natural for the body. I mean, I don't even know how to make it sound sophisticated. It's just not meant for the human body. It's not natural. It's dangerous. It's gonna mess with your hormones, mess with all your stuff. It's not eliminating properly, overstimulating you in messed up ways. It's definitely not good for your endocrine system. Because any of these stimulants, it's because I compare that also to the kind of people that try to say that coffee and caffeine is a health food. You see these guys with these podcasts and billions of followers, and they promote with a straight face, they promote coffee and caffeine like this is something good for you. It's good to do, it's to get a little bit of this every day. And it's just like, man, this is ridiculous. But the toll that it takes on the endocrine system, the toll that it takes on your adrenal glands is monumental. And like I tell people, most people have never even met themselves because they've never been sober. Because if you're drinking coffee, refined sugars, uh, I mean, even eating, if you're 30 bananas a day or what, I mean, if you're doing these kind of high stimulating things and you haven't ever gotten into a fasting period or a more simpler mono fruit period or anything like that. Not that you have to do that every day for the rest of your life, but to visit that, we call that fasting, to visit those places, you can actually get a sense of where your energy actually is, how you actually feel. Because what a lot of people find out is they're addicted to things that actually keep them in a good mood. They were the type of person if you don't feel right, if you don't have your coffee, or if you don't even if you don't feel right until you have your banana, that's you should feel right immediately. And then you get
Mm.
later on in the day when you need it, have your handful of grapes or bananas or whatever your transition is, But but that's a perspective that I've been trying to get over to people more often because you rarely do you meet a person that's in their actual condition, like meeting that person for real. With us, I had some grapes today. That was my mono meal about 2 hours ago, and I'll probably have a salad later today. I'm not hopped up on, like I'm not didn't take something to stimulate me extra. It's just
Yeah.
and even before I ate the grapes, it's like I was basically like this, well, I didn't eat the grapes and I'm like, woohoo, it's just
Yeah.
and I promote that. I like just kind of keeping that nice, even keel. I don't like real big crazy ups and those crazy lows. I like to keep it nice and balanced. And what makes you balance is going to change over time with your transition. So I wouldn't tell people to just eat and do what I'm doing today because I've been doing this for 23 years. You're be better off to maybe do what I did 20 years ago or something. But but the point is you want to find that homeostasis and that balance. And I see a lot of very unbalanced people in our guess that's our community, the people that identify with what we're talking about. And in almost in every case, the reason is because lack of transition.
And addiction. And
Yeah.
speaking of addiction, I was addicted to salt most of my time as a healthy raw vegan and following the mucusless diet healing system, even because I didn't really. Does Arnold ever talk about salt?
Yes, he says a couple things. On one hand, if you're very, very early in your transition, he makes a point of how hard it is for people, because he's basically making a point about how addictive salt is and how unnatural eating meat is, saying that in order for most people to eat something like dead animal flesh or even vegetables, they had to put something on it like a stimulant to actually put that on it to make it taste, stimulate the taste buds in such a way where it makes it palatable, as opposed to if we were truly supposed to eat dead animal flesh, obviously our physiology would be quite different, but we wouldn't want to cook it and we wouldn't want to like slather it with all kinds of stuff. And there's was wars fought about salt because salt was used to pack and preserve and other spices and stuff to preserve meat. And so before refrigeration, people died over over salt.
I
So
didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, the salt. Yeah, you could look at
Oh,
the salt wars and the spice wars and all that stuff way many years back.
this is a real commodity before refrigeration. Yes. Wow. Okay, so now tell us, why do you not consume? When is the last time you had salt? And maybe not table salt, but like Himalayan pink salt or Celtic salt or sea salt.
I mean, I never put it in. If I had it, it might have been in something that I use. So if I like bought a store bought some type of, I would try to get like an organic store bought tomato sauce, and then I'd
Hmm.
still make kind of my own version out of that. But basically, that was the only time where I would have something that would have that type of salt infused into it. If I bought a store bought thing or a processed vegan thing or some kind of something like that, or
And
even
when was that?
I mean, a number of years, just over the years, I'll check in with. I have my handful of things that I'll use
Yeah.
and check in with them over time. But yeah, so it's not like it's like, well, last time I had something that was in a can was back. It's like, nah, there's if certain things that I'll use that I'm not as hardcore on, if especially if it eliminates well.
I
But
ask because some people are telling me we can't live without salt. Like I have people telling me you cannot live without salt, meaning like added salt, Himalayan pink salt, Celtic salt. Do you think that's true that we need this substance?
no, so the in theory, from say an Arnold Ehret perspective, he uses the word mineral salt a lot. He's not talking about salt, ionized salt, but he's making a reference to what vegetables do for our elimination. So when you compare what fruits do versus what vegetables do, the fruit is more aggressive. It has that astringent property oftentimes, depending on the type of fruit. And so it's going to act as more of a solvent, like you would spray some kind of solvent if you had something sticky on your wall or in the kitchen, you spray it and it kind of loosens it up. But is that it? Are you done? No, you have to take some kind of towel or something and wipe it down, and that's what the vegetables do. And he's talking about that on a cellular level, at the blood level, where mineral salts are an excellent cleaning agent for the cells of the body. But
Oh, I
so
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. And so
Oh.
so that's the relationship where you get the fruit. is going to loosen stuff up, and it cleanses in its own right. But then for if you're not perfectly clean, or if then you're going to need some vegetables, you're going to need some of those mineral salts to come through, whether if it's a green juice or you just eat it in a broom to be a broom. So that's why we call that a broom salad, or the different items that are selected to eat, including the cooked mucus-free ones. They are selected specifically to aid in this brooming and cleansing process. So we're never eating from the perspective, at least I'm not, of this like of nutrition theories and let me get my enzymes and get the vitamins and minerals and that kind of stuff. It's I'm never thinking like that. I'm thinking, how is this going to help to clean out my GI tract? The fruit is clean, is just clean. Those grapes that I ate today, I could feel it going down and cleaning things out. And
Yes.
the salad that I ate last night, it's like that just was nice little broom salad, had some beautiful eliminations this morning. That's the stuff I'm thinking about. I'm not into all of the, these little, oh, you got to get this, you got to get that. When you're
Yes.
talking about salt, and if you just deal with the craving of it, the generally when people really have this insatiable craving for salt, their endocrine system, there's a tendency for it to be shot, to be down. That really points to adrenal glands that are not functioning as they need to, because you're craving stimulant. Once the endocrine system is brought back online and everything is kind of, you wake everything back up, then all of a sudden it's not that you hate the taste of something salty, like that desire goes away completely, but it's different. It's not this kind of insatiable sort of appetite, and it's one of those like you could take it or leave it depending on what you're eating. Now, that was something I just, as far as putting salt on stuff, I cut that out. I just did that in 23 years. That was just cut out immediately. And I got into using like some of the salt-free, pepper-free type of, uh, I think back then it was like Miss Dash. I mean, it was before I really got more into the organic
Mrs.
stuff.
Dash. I think she's
Was
married.
okay, Mrs. Dash. Yeah, and the McCormick and that, it was like
McCormick. Yeah,
those
yeah,
early
yeah.
days. It was like that kind of stuff. And but then I ended up just getting into where I really liked garlic powder, onion powder, and that would be just the main thing that I would put on stuff, vegetables and things, oregano,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. Then later I got into dill, but then I'd like fresh dill and fresh parsley, and you get to a point where you more just want fresh herbs that you just put in your salad, and or if you are prepping with something, you can add those in there. But yeah, but I definitely, the couple things that I do recommend that people use, that we've found that if you are addicted to salt, there's tools now that weren't available years ago. So now I don't know if you've heard of that, stuff called green salt. It's made from this particular type of sea vegetable, and I tested that out, and it eliminates really well. It doesn't come with all of the side effects, because the thing is, when you eat regular salt, then I know I'm gonna have a headache when I get up in the morning. Or just get all parched and all, just because what do you do because it's horrible for our mucosa. If you think about one way people, if they have slugs, I've known some people that for whatever reason, where their house was located, they would get a bunch of slugs that would come in. And to kill the slugs, they put salt down. And so the slug goes over the salt, and it just takes all of the moisture out of that slug and kills it. Well, our mucosa is kind of slug-like. We're protected. It's protected by our skin and stuff, but we have that real soft kind of tissue system. And so you get some salt, just like I tell people, if you really, because another test you can do is no, I'm not actually not saying to do this, but do a brain experiment, thought experiment. If you have a cut, put some salt in that cut how's that feel?
Uh,
does that feel good? Or if you put green salt in it, it doesn't do the same thing. It doesn't do that kind of reaction. Or if you put other whatever other vegetables and stuff, it doesn't have that reaction. So it's really stimulating and harming to the mucosa and to the to our electrical system because it's kind of like the electrical system is like it's like, oh, what's going on? And
hmm
so ultimately you over time you tax those adrenal glands, and once somebody's unable to recharge their adrenal glands on their own without support from the caffeine and all this kind of stuff. And then eventually that's not going to work. And that's where you have people that out of nowhere they feel like they were healthy, and people, especially if they're eating a regular diet, but I've seen this too in the natural areas, but the people kind of crash out and they end up kind of bedridden for a period, just totally fatigued, totally, and they don't know what happened. They're like, man, I eat good. I take a multivitamin. I take my B12. I do all the things they've told me to do, yet I'm chronically fatigued out of nowhere, and I don't know what happened. And they just don't because people don't do a deep understanding and study of the endocrine system to understand that you can't turn that thing on and off. That has to be eased in and kind of nurtured back to life once it's harmed. But uh, but yeah, so that's this for me. The salt discussion goes right into that direction. But to me, man, there's so many things to use that for folks that if you're really addicted to salt, uh, I like dulse, the
hmm
sea vegetable dulse. A lot of that you got to order online these days. They don't. A lot of stores stop selling that for some reason. Is probably because people like it. But yeah, stuff like dulse, and some people get into the kelp. I mean, there's sea vegetable stuff. Then I know some people are anti, like, oh, well, it was in the ocean and the ocean is dirty, so you don't use that. When it's like, okay, then there's other stuff that you can find, or don't use anything at all. Because for the first 10 years, I didn't use any sea vegetables or anything salty at all for the first 10 years of practicing the mucus diet. So and I could have continued to do that, but when I did find dulse, I'm like, oh, I do like this, and it eliminates well. It's not harming me, so I'm gonna use it. And kelp and that kind of stuff is to me is not that big a deal when you're mostly mucus free and you're using your salad and that kind of stuff. But those are some of the tools that can be used if you are trying to get off of that old rock salt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. Somebody recently told me that dried coconut water, like powdered, is slightly salty. I have not tried it yet, but apparently dried coconut water can also be a salt replacement. So guys, check that out. What are some of the dangers or the harm that you have seen in people and even yourself from using salt, like added salt, like the Himalayan, the sea salt, the Celtic salt? Obviously, we know bloating and dehydration, which nobody takes dehydration seriously. Like
Yeah.
Spira, like people think dehydration just means you're thirsty. Can you break down the dangers of being dehydrated? Like the slug was such a great story because that's dehydration. But can you break down what are the long-term side effects of being slightly dehydrated by salt?
Well, it allows oftentimes the acidosis, as some people say that all disease is acids or acidosis based. And I say, well, you got to take a step back. Look at what Arnold Ehret was saying. All disease, no matter what name it is known by medical science, is constipation. One of the
Yes.
one of the results of constipation is then acidosis. The stuff is not eliminating. And even if you're having healthy foods, if that stuff sits in you long enough, if it's not, you're not having natural bowel movements and things aren't moving, it's going to start to get toxic and acidic if it's there long enough. And so in terms of the salt, that's what we're dealing with. It's the you already have a body where because generally somebody in that kind of condition, they're already dehydrated. They're just that's how they begin this journey is just totally dehydrated. And and then there's things, that's why there's so many people that I'm recommending them drink what you're drinking right there, the green juice, the they call it just green juice therapy, because the acids that they're just that they got to neutralize these acids, which help with the cravings of food. Or if they're like, oh, I'm still craving this or that, it's like, man, you're acidic, you're dehydrated, you need to. But you can't just, because another fun stupid one of these dumb things that people's like, oh, well, just drink a bunch of water. And that, well, the water can't get into your cells if you're constipated. It's just water just goes right through you. It's not doing anything. Your body's not absorbing anything if
Well,
there's
we
all
don't know
this
that. Oh,
slime.
that I didn't know that either. Wait, so water cannot get into the
Think
cells.
about that. If you got all of this
Hold on, let me
slime,
spotlight you. Oh God.
yeah. So
Why do
think
you have
about
to
this.
have
If
this
you got
right
all
next
this
to me?
slime, that this was all in the lining of the colon and intestines for these people here, and you have all this slime. How much nutrition is for the nutrition people? How much of that is going to, through osmosis, go through the slime and then get into the cells of your body? That's one of the reasons why that people don't understand why they're still dehydrated. Like, well, I drink 8 glasses a day, and even if you avoid salt, and I avoid salt, and I do all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but you never took your body through a cleansing process to actually permanently remove the fundamental acids that are there, that from eating meat and dairy. You can't just drink a bunch of water and that's going to go away overnight. Like, you have to therapeutically tra
Now
transform
it
your
makes
physiology.
sense. Now things make sense now because, well, first of all, the 8 glasses a day thing, as you probably know, was actually recommended by the powers that be the same year that they added fluoride to the water. I'm sure you know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everyone needs to know that.
Right.
Number two, oh my gosh, when I first went raw, because I was really into the mucusless diet when I first went raw. I'm so
Hmm.
grateful, that that's how I kind of found raw. And what happened was I was always drinking green juice because the person that taught me how to be raw, he was really adamant about having green juice. And I
Hmm.
kind of fell out of that habit because I'm like, oh, fruit is our species specific food. Fruit is the perfect food. But now you're reminding me why I felt really good when I was drinking green juice, which this is just cucumber and celery. Uh, so I'm really happy that you're saying this because I forgot about the broom. And that was such a great analogy of like the fruit is like the spray, but then you need something, and the paper towel is the vegetables. You
Right.
the broom or the cleaning material. So that's really great. And now I didn't know that. So the water from the fruit and vegetables, or specifically the vegetables, can go into your cells to get that out, the mucus.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's going in there, and
Uh-huh.
especially, but that's why, from a systematic standpoint, we'll recommend, especially early on for people, get your enemas in there, just clean out that slimy colon of yours and intestines, and just everything from a systematic standpoint works hand in hand, because you do some mechanical cleansing here, then you have your juice going in, that's going to be, yeah, that's it's getting into those cells and cleaning things out. You got the fruit that's going to help to move the lymphatic system, so it becomes this flywheel effect where it's not just like one thing, which is another problem that I see sometimes. People get obsessed with one part of it, like one part of the system.
Yeah.
So they'll get obsessed with trying with just, oh, fasting. It's all about fasting. Or they'll get obsessed. It's all about green juices and juice therapy. Or is there other people? Oh, it's all about herbs, or it's all
Or
about
fruit. Fruit
or
only.
fruit. Yeah, yeah, or fruit
Fruit
only.
only.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
opposed to really understanding these are all tools that can be used systematically and should be deployed as needed for your personal situation, your body. But that becomes part of the art of this thing, of really being able to look inward and observe and know what you need. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that does take a little learning curve to that, because you got to first get somewhat clean, as you start the cleansing process. And then eventually the intuition can take over. Once you've practiced the principles long enough and you've started to clean yourself out and that kind of stuff, then the intuition can take over. And because right when you get started, the intuition is generally constipated. And so it's not really not yet intuition, it's more addiction. And so you're
Yeah, sorry, your
craving.
intuition is constipated. That's good.
Yeah,
That just hit
that'd be a
me.
good quote. Yeah.
That just hit me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why people can't think clearly because their whole body, including their intuition, is constipated.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So people are asking a lot of questions.
Mm.
A lot of these questions, I mean, for example, we got a question, Spira. Can you tell us, okay, how do we know? So, how long does it take to remove the mucoid plaque? But like, we don't know how much mucoid plaque you have. Like,
Right.
are you 20 pounds overweight? Are you 400 pounds overweight? Like, we don't know. It depends, right, on how you ate in the past. Did you grow up eating good food? How sick are you? How much drugs, antibiotics? I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much,
I mean,
right?
one way to think about it, which is in front of my mind because I just had the furnace serviced, and every several months you're supposed to remove the filter and put in a clean filter. Well, why is that? When you take the filter out, there's dust and particles and all this kind of stuff that's on there. So to answer that question, when is all of the mucoid plaque gone? You're always going to want to be cleansing. You're always going to want to, and it's not in the sense of doing a cleanse or that focus. What we're
Your
talking about
daily
is it's a lifestyle
lifestyle.
of elimination where you're conscious. See, this is what I'm proposing is that Arnold Ehret brought to the table is a new paradigm of how we think about and experience our own body. It is very different from the people that really hold on to these nutrition theories and the calorie theories and this and oh you're going to be deficient if you don't get this or you got to get your salt or you get a goiter and it's like all these theories that are not based in a true understanding of the power of the body's ability to eliminate, and that when there is a problem in the body begins the process of trying to eliminate. When you know that that's what's happening and you understand how to aid the body in its elimination, now you know how to heal yourself. You know how to allow your body to heal itself because it has the healing power. There's no healers that's like, oh, I'm a healer and I'm gonna. It's like, no, they can give you the information. Somebody that knows can be like, okay, do this, get out of your, most of the time it's getting out of your body's way so that it can heal itself. When there's more chronic issues, then it can take longer and be a little more intense in terms of what you need to do. But
Yeah.
but yeah, that intuition is and people don't, yeah, they don't think about that because that's again why transition is so important because it's
Yeah.
gonna take a little while before you are craving exactly what your body is supposed to be eating. And that's a beautiful place. Like once you get there and you experience what that is, it's a beautiful place because you're not thinking about food all day. You're not, that's kind of obsession. Because I have to tell people sometimes, like, look, my life doesn't revolve around food. That's the whole point. It's just
No.
that's
Yeah.
why I'm don't the you know you, it's like to me taking pictures of my food and all the like the influencer thing is it's boring. Who
It
cares?
is.
I had a handful of grapes today. Like that's not, and I'm not now, yeah, now you and people that know how to make it look pretty and plate things and that stuff, but I'm just like chop, chop, chop. If I chop
Not
and
me,
open it
dude.
up,
Not me, dude. I can't do what I eat in a days because it is so boring and it's the same thing and I'm so bored with it. And I force myself to do it sometimes, but like I am
Right.
not making it pretty. It's already pretty. Like God made it pretty.
Yeah.
So, okay, now, oh, we have okay, so a fruity cutie of mine asked me in my private community, how do we know we're transitioning properly? How does she know she's transitioning properly? I told her, okay, because you're not falling off. You're not eating shit. That's how you'll know. So let me ask you, how would you answer that question? How will somebody know if they're transitioning properly?
The number one word that I would say is control. Because even if you eat something that's less than ideal, if you're doing it consciously and as a strategy
Mm,
to move yourself forward, now we're talking about the kind of control that's indicative of a good transition.
mm.
And that's what takes a little time to get to because in my book, well, I have the Spira Speaks book. I talk about crackhead mode that I called it crackhead mode when I was early in my transition, where they're just I go into a store and I just lost control. I'm just like just for mucus, like it just looking like, oh, that and this and all these cravings are there because all that's I hadn't gotten that out of my system yet. But once you with the way that I teach transition, I try to take the guilt away and the pressure, and it's like, look, like this is between you and your body. It's like the community and the social acceptance and worrying about what people think about what you're eating and doing like that. You got to take that out of the equation. That's unnecessary.
And you gotta both fingers. You gotta give them both. Who cares? It's
Yeah.
your body, it's your life, it's your transition, it's your experience here. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
true.
and so yeah, so the trend. But I would encourage you to check out that's the my version, the annotated mucusless diet healing system. Really look at those lessons 15, 16, 17. Really get into those transition diet lessons and read them and reread them and read them again and just really
Yes.
absorb yourself into that ethos and that mentality. I got a bunch of videos on transition dieting. We're actually working on a new course right now. It's the Transition Diet 101 course is
Ah.
the working title. We'll see if that title remains, but it's literally we want to make getting into the basic principles of the transition diet as easy as possible. And so that's going to be something that's literally going to be something we give away to everybody. It's like this isn't even like a paid course. It's going to be like our free course. It's like, look, here, humanity. If you want to learn more, cool. But just everybody at least needs this basic transition diet understanding because it is life changing when you really, really get it and you're able to apply it.
Yeah, I love the no guilt eating. That's really key for me. I don't want to be in guilt my whole life. And I think you can agree that before you got healthy, food was definitely on your mind way more. And it was like, yeah. So for me, I used to be obsessed with food, and I was always thinking about what I was going to eat next. And I was
Hmm.
always thinking about like how I was gonna like stop eating it and what I was gonna do on Monday, how I was gonna start over, and there was a whole thing. And so then when I went raw, I'm like, oh, I'm not obsessed with food anymore. I have it when I have it, and when I'm not eating, I'm not eating. And I'm not thinking about eating. So I think people think that raw vegans or people following the mucusless diet healing system are obsessed, but we're actually the opposite of most society. Can you talk about how it's clear and obvious that most of society is actually obsessed with food, and why do they try to tell people that are healthy that they're obsessed when it's society, the sick, fat, and nearly dead people that are obsessed? What is going on here in society?
Yeah, it's more mental constipation and people loving, misery loves company, because
Um,
I just talked about this the other day. When you start to really get into the fabric of where people say that we're wired as social beings in that whole kind of, brain analysis, uh, and you get into then the language. So the word companion, if you look up the etymology of the word companion, it literally means breadfellows. The foundation of the concept of a companion itself is people who break bread together. Your relationship revolves around food, revolves
bread.
around eating. Like that is the relationship is we're coming together and whatever else we do outside of this is the foundation. This is why it's so hard when people try to have relationships or if they learn this information, you bring this type of information back to where your partner is doing something else, it tends to not work out very well because people don't realize how much a relationship is based on what you're eating, the foundation of it. And people don't think about it like that. But
Wow.
yeah, relate because if you're relating to one another, it's hard to relate if
Relate.
there's McDonald's is being eaten over here and you're doing an enema or you're doing a green juice or something over here. It's like it causes quite a bit of chaos. And I know that there's people that are trying to do that. And there's a few people that have been successful or kind of figured it out. Usually what happens in those scenarios is one person does get on the path, then the loved one eventually gets sick, and then they've been observing the other loved one long enough where they're like, "Hey, what was that book you were talking about?" Or, "Hey, what should I do? Because I feel horrible." Then they're a little more open to it, and sometimes they can use that period of being sick or going through an elimination uh, the partner can help them through that, and then they'll actually stay on some kind of improved diet. But yeah, it's those social dynamics. That's something that I talk a lot about it. That's why I do my annual Thanksgiving live stream on that day. I've fasted on Thanksgiving every day for the past however many 20 years or something. Like I
Oh, you do
just
it live here on YouTube?
yeah.
What time? Do you know what time yet?
Usually I'll start it in the evening usually. Yeah, like eight
Oh,
o'clock Eastern
nice. I'll
time,
be
something like
there.
that. Yeah. And
Okay.
it's just basically just a support kind of thing. I've done different things over the years. I'll look at like the insanity of how ridiculous that holiday is. We just the history of it that's just made up and based on genocide and slaughter. And you got the Black Friday, because sometimes I'll go live on Thanksgiving and Black Friday because not as much now because everything is online. But
Yeah.
before stuff went online, like 7 years ago or something, there were websites that had score clocks of how many people got trampled on the day because Target and Walmart, everybody's there, and at midnight they like open the doors up, and I used to watch those videos, and that'd be part of the video where seeing these people, because you're seeing like little old ladies that live in the suburbs, like going through and punching people and like running over people and stuff. And I'm like, welcome to Pus and Mucus world right here. Like, this is the logical conclusion of that.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
but,
Because you go to like these fruit festivals, like Woodstock, um, everyone is so peaceful, so nice. We never have anybody fighting ever. We
right.
never have anybody yelling. Nobody's getting into fights. Imagine hundreds of people coming together and not one fight in 7 days. Like that's unheard of. Nobody stealing anything. If you leave your credit card, listen, if you drop your credit card, it will be exactly where you left it.
Hmm.
But if you leave a durian somewhere, that shit will be
That's
gone in a
gone.
second. So don't
Yeah,
even think
right.
about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
I once left my camera somewhere and I was freaking out and I went back to where I was. It was there. It was nobody's touching anything.
Right.
But like that's a different reality than we're living in. So thanks killing. That's really good. Okay, we have a great question from Moon. No, the more you know, the more you know. It's hard to do. Wait. That's not the question. They asked about. Oh boy, there's so many questions here. Where's your question? I saw it, but I got distracted. Hold on. I'm so sorry. There's too much here. Dr. Moore. Okay, Dr. Moore says when someone's really sick, if they eat greens and not all fruit, they won't repair. Does Spira agree? I think greens are essential, but I'm not an expert. So, okay, it's not just Dr. Morse. A lot of people are recommending fruit only when you're extremely sick. What are your thoughts on that?
So that's, yeah, one of those places where we do bring what I would consider a little bit more of a sophisticated kind of approach to this that incorporates an understanding of transition methodology. So a lot of transition, because a transition diet, there's the general kind of big macro dietary things that we can discuss. But once you really understand those principles, you can also apply it to different levels of fasting, to herbology, to all of these different kind of more things that need a little bit more, and in some cases, a lot more precision in terms of the use of those particular tools. So herbology needs precision. You just don't throw, which some people promote that, just kind of throw a bunch of stuff at it just at the wall and hope something sticks. It's like, no, you got to really be precise and understand what you're doing and how you're, because for me, herbs are either doing one of two things. If you're going to use them, you don't have to use them, but if you're going to use them, you should think about them in the sense of it's either going to help to stimulate something that needs to be stimulated, like a gland, or it's helping to eliminate and remove something out of the body. And there's just certain components that over time have that we found help to eliminate certain things in the body that stimulate certain tissue systems and cause, certain some things are astringent. And that's the art and science of herbology. But what I say to that is, see, I have a problem with that notion of, yeah, either eat fruit until you're totally healed or fast until you're totally healed, because the problem is some people are not going to be able to do that from a physiological standpoint. They're going to need to apply transitional principles in order to get where they want to go. So what you could do instead, based again on your physiology, these are the kinds of things I kind of work with in our membership and stuff in a more one-on-one basis, because it's hard to just give general prescriptions for this kind of stuff. But one type of scenario is somebody will eat you either eat all fruit, if they're in a fruit, kind of a really chronically ill situation, and so they're eating the fruit, and then maybe they're on the herbs or they're drinking fruit juice or whatever, but then there's a point that you can get to where you notice it's like, man, I'm not if you did notice that certain symptoms were going away and they're not, it's like you hit a plateau point. Well, that's where you got to hit the reset button. But knowing how to do that properly is what very few people besides us really know how to do, in terms of there is things like vegetable broth, which Arnold Ehret talked about. You got the green juice therapy, so you could be eating your fruit, drinking your greens. You do a period of that type of regimen. You can have a period of time where you have some mucus-free meals, vegetable meals. So you're still eating the fruit, but get a mucus-free meal in there. I'm not saying anything that's also not in Dr. Morris's book. You can find, he just doesn't talk about it all that much, but because he takes his overall prescription or his general prescription of fruit in the afternoon, because there's either a fruit all day prescription or the fruit in the afternoon and either a fruit meal in the evening, or to have you can have a vegetable meal or even cooked mucus free vegetable. That's in his book.
Yes.
And so, but people don't
That's
know.
how he eats. That's how he eats on a general basis. He told me last week,
Mm,
fruit in the morning, cooked like steamed vegetables in a salad in the middle of
mm.
the day, and then at night fruit. He prefers that way because he says vegetables take longer to digest, so he does that in the middle of the day. I don't know your thoughts on that. That is an interesting
Those
concept.
are all, yeah, I mean, that's stuff that all gets real just kind of personal to your physiology. Also depends on your workload, the
Yep.
kind of just the
Yep.
way where you are, because those things can change over years and decades. To just that's all different. You just got to find your groove with that. For me, my default is I call it Ehret's sanitarium, standard sanitarium menu, because Ehret talks about all these sophisticated things. Because one of the things people miss on the art of the transition diet that I like to point out to people is, if you notice, when you look at his prescribed transition diet from the weeks 1 and 2, then there's weeks 3 and 4. What you notice is he's not even recommending, and this is just, again, read the transition to understand this. but he's not even recommending somebody have raw fruit for the first month because we're taking somebody off the street that's super sick and constipated and eating all this meat and dairy and stuff. So what he does is he starts off with the least aggressive kind of meal setup. So you're eating a vegetable meal at lunchtime with some cooked mucus-free vegetables and that kind of stuff. Then you're having cooked fruit in the evening, which is like your baked banana surprise or baked banana, baked apple. You can stew blueberries and blackberries, and there's all that kind of stuff. When I get somebody that has been on raw foods, I've worked over the years, I've worked with a bunch of people that were aspiring raw foodists. They do it wrong and they never really transition. They get to a point where they can no longer have natural bowel movements. So one of the first things I put them on is baked banana surprise, and within two or 3 days they're having perfect bowel movements again, and they're like, "Oh, what?" But
And that's just baked banana, right?
baked
Like,
banana,
because
yeah.
when you say surprise, it's like, what's the surprise?
Oh, no. Baked banana surprise. The combination is baked banana, applesauce, and chopped dates.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a dessert thing. It's like a delight,
oh, wow, that's probably
and
delicious. Like a
it's
pie. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, for people that if you have a sweet tooth crack, I was
Hmm.
never one of the type of people that have like an insane sweet tooth, but my friend brother Air, he's the guy that had that kind of insane sweet tooth where he could eat a whole bag of donuts or something like that. It's like,
Me
yeah, I
too.
like my cake and stuff, but I wasn't into sweets like that, to where I was more into just gluttony of hot dogs and pizza and stuff, but in my former life. But yeah, no, that's one of those things that we bring where we say, look, there's a method to that, to the reason why, if it's because sometimes that's like it's an intermediary step, instead of going all the way back to where it's like, okay, I'm eating raw fruits, but then the raw vegetables, and then maybe some cooked vegetables, but there's something missing. And then you explore cooked fruit, and it's like a revelation. It's like, oh wow, because what's happening? It's less aggressive. If you have a raw apple, when I say aggressive, what I mean is that it's more astringent. It's more, if you have any kind of gunk or something in your stomach and you eat an apple, you're gonna get bloated. And it's not the apple's fault. You just have uneliminated mess in your GI tract, and the apple is actually in there trying to help cleanse you. It's just going to be very uncomfortable. But if you bake that apple and you eat it, it's not going to be as astringent. It's not as aggressive, so you're going to have less bloat, but it's still going to act as a bit of a broom, and there's a bit of a solvent. It's way more gentle. And so to do that for a period of time, it's just a great tool that,
Yeah.
again, is part of the transition methodology, but people, unless they come deal with us, they kind of totally miss that you can bake, you can make your own. You can have raw applesauce. You can make your raw applesauce, but you can also bake apples and then blend it up into a sauce, and put a little
Yeah.
cinnamon and nutmeg in there or something like that. It's a whole thing. Once you're done with it, I mean, or it's like, I don't eat baked banana. I don't eat baked fruit much at all anymore. But in the early formative years of my transition, it was a very, very important bridge. It's like, it's another way, I guess, to think about some of these transitional items is they're bridges to better things. It's a bridge to a cleaner option, or a more whole or pure option, or whatever, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love it. Okay, we have some other questions about the transition diet and stuff, but I just want to know, is there anything that you would find, like ending the salt thing, is there anything you would like to tell people about salt, or anything that you know that most people don't know about the dangers of salt, or like anything you can think of that people generally don't understand or know about salt? And then I'm going to ask you about the questions
Just
in the chat.
that, so the thing that I would say that you wouldn't hear anybody else probably talk about would be The salt is going to keep you addicted to pus and mucus forming foods, or at least mucus forming foods, much longer than you otherwise would have if you're truly on the transition. So that, and Eric gets into that a little bit because he talks about the way it's almost like addiction cycles. So where if you're into meat, then this natural thirst for alcohol comes, and then you get the alcohol, and then the alcohol, then you create this downward spiral of. That's why we say mucus forming foods is the gateway drug. It is the actual gateway drug because there is no smoking a bunch of weed and doing all this, whatever, cocaine, whatever people are into these days, the fentanyls and all this. There is none of that if you do not have pus and mucus forming foods first in somebody's life. They just don't, since they're not identified as a drug, then people don't look at it like that. And then they just say, oh, so and so, it's a disease. They're fentanyl or this or that or whatever it is. It's like, no, look at what they were eating first.
Mm,
And then find me the people that's like you and me, has been eating fruits and vegetables for 20 years that
yeah.
get strung out on fentanyl, or get strung, you know what I mean? Like, or they, like, how many of us are in those Philadelphia when they go in the streets of Philadelphia and then like people are where it's like just looks like the Walking Dead kind of thing. That's not the diet started first, and then people got into cocaine or they got into heroin or they got into whatever it is. You just all that kind of thing. And once you're in that life and you're in that kind of spiral of that, then yeah, it's rough. Like that's gonna
So
be a
you
rough
start
life.
as a drug addict. Wow, this is like
Mhm.
blowing my mind because yeah, a drug addict starts with food.
Yeah.
Like the food is the first drug you take, then you transition, no pun intended, to the alcohol. You said, you said meat and alcohol are related. How is that?
Yeah, so the way that Eric looks at it is alcohol is an antidote to the level of acidity and the kind of stimulant that meat that kind of you eat that meat by itself. That's that, like, well, you look at like the Liver King or these people, but as a cartoonish example of the point. But it's like you eat that meat and it's like for some people it gets them all that kind of revved up, and then the you
Yeah.
drink some alcohol, it kind of takes the edge off, or smoke a cigarette, tobacco. And so for everybody, these
Too
drugs,
stimulating. It's too stimulating. So we
yeah,
need
what
to,
people end
yeah.
up doing and people ride, it ends up like it's like riding a wave. And this is just how drugs work, but you're riding that wave. Because I used to do is I can talk about this from, I still remember those days. Like that was a former life, but I
Yeah.
remember going to, it's like after the club, you go to the late, places don't even open 24 hours any day, but you go to Perkins or Denny's or something that's open 24 hours, and you get and they used to actually, you could smoke in the restaurant. I'm that old. You could smoke in the restaurant, and they have a smoking section. So you go in, and we had already drank and stuff going. And I'm a teenager because I came up in the teenage club era. So it was all those teenage clubs everywhere. So we drink before going to the club, go in there, be crazy. But then at night, like 3 a.m. in the morning, we're going to Perkins, we're going to wherever we go, and you go, and I got my little Freak Black and Mild. I got my cigarettes, they had the little Camels and that kind of stuff. And it was almost like this ritual of, like, I remember how that felt, like how intoxicating that was. Get this old, Waffle House cheap ass steak or whatever, and you get that, and you're eating this steak and eggs while smoking a cigarette or a Black and Mild. Then when you get back out to the car, it's like, man, you're gonna take a swig of some kind of alcohol, or you're gonna go hit a blunt, go walk around the restaurant, hit a blunt, and then if you have some, if you have some partners that are down to party on the physical part of life, then that becomes a climax to the evening, pun intended. And so it's all this stimulant that leads to more stimulant, and just so much the dopamine kind of roller coaster. And what you find is by changing the beginning of that, by you removing the pus and the mucus from the equation, you find that the whole rest of the thing goes away. You don't want any of that. You don't want the tobacco, the alcohol. Even if you don't force yourself to stay away from it, you get repelled by it because it's your body recognizes it as poison. Like, I don't want that. Like, that's not gonna eliminate well. It's gonna make me feel horrible. It's like, it's not gonna agree with me. But when you're stuck in that reality, which is normal for most people. But a lot of people can't even socialize without alcohol or smoking a cigarette or something. I mean, that used to be, I remember that part of that culture where you would go and ask people for a cigarette, and that was this little kinship thing, and people would get like, hey, can I bum a cigarette? Can I bum a square? Be like, yeah, and it became this social thing, where you're like sharing this moment with somebody of smoking,
Yeah.
but it's all based on this stimulant. It's based on
Drugs.
this like
Drugs.
this thing, this addiction, and once until you get away from it, you don't know how good you can feel. Like, you don't really have a frame of reference. But I have a whole series on mucus and pus forming food addiction, where I made this years ago, but I literally compare, I do like the 12-step program. I apply all those principles and concepts and the 5 steps of grief and the bargaining and the depression. Like, I do a whole analysis of that from the perspective of eating pus and mucus forming foods, just if nothing else to give people that understanding to not be hard on yourself, because it's if you understand and use the transition properly and wisely, it's not a willpower thing. You don't it's not you're
Right.
not
Right.
forcing something.
I don't have it. I don't have discipline. I don't have willpower when it comes to mucus forming foods. I never used
Hmm.
willpower. I used the power of, yeah, the transition in my own way before I really knew what I was doing. You have to, yeah, you have to be smart about this because most people, like you said, they're not going to be able to do all fruit right away. There's just no way.
No.
There's just no way. And just mucus free right away? No way. No way. Like, you cannot go from 0 to 100. Now, what you said was you get repulsed by it because your body recognizes it as poison. I wrote that in the chat because everyone needs to write that down and read that over and over again because that's what's going to happen to you one day. You're not just going to like just be like, I'm disciplined, I don't want that. No, you're going to be repulsed by it because your body will recognize it as poison. That's literally the perfect way to describe that. And yeah, thank you so much. That's good. That's really good. Why does my mind crave salt even though I have not had it for over 10 years, Spira? That's a question. Mm,
Yeah, I mean that I would my follow-up question to that would be, what's your energy levels like? Is there any fatigue there, or do you generally feel really good? You just kind of crave some salt. But if there's fatigue that goes along with that craving, then like we were talking about earlier, there's probably
yes.
some endocrine things there that could be dealt with.
Yes. And don't forget about the other things because we are, Spira talks a lot about diet, right? That's one of his specialties, but
Mm,
he also talks about all the other factors of health. Nature. Have you been on the charger today? Because you
hmm
put your phone on the charger, but have you put your feet on the ground?
hmm
Probably not. So how are you going to be a healthy human, not craving salt, not craving stimulation? Is your life stimulating? Are you doing something you love? Me and Spirit, like we got blessed. We get to do what we love. Like, we get to talk about things we're interested in with people that care. You know what I mean? And like important things to people that care about that stuff. Like, are you doing that, or do you have a dead end job that you hate?
hmm
Because then
Yeah.
you're gonna be craving stimulation. So
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
there's other things. Exercise.
Yeah.
Spira, he's big
hmm
into exercise. Like me too. I just got into it. Feel a lot better, look a lot better. Everything's better. Digesting better, sleeping better. I was bloated as fuck for over 10 years as a raw vegan.
Mm.
Because I wasn't exercising. I wasn't getting into nature. I wasn't getting into the sun. I was eating late at night. I was all the food combining shit. So
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
going on here than just what you eat. So,
Yeah.
guys, if you're not subscribed to Professor Spira, I will leave his channel below. I'll leave his website below, all his books. They're very important. I mean, the his annotated version of the Mucusless Diet Healing System is like mandatory. You have to have this in your library. You have to, because you're not going to be able to be a healthy human unless you know how to eat as a healthy human eats. Okay, like you have to master the diet. But also know if you've mastered the diet, Citrus Simon, which with a name like that, I feel like you are on the path. You been doing the other things? Now we have an interesting question. Listen to this one, Spira. Okay, I'm gonna let you go soon, but we got so many good questions. Do men need to grow a beard to fulfill their full potential as suggested in Arnold Ehret's book? What is this in his book?
Sort of, but what Eric's talking about is he talks about hair and a beard, and he's what he's in modern day lingo we would say that Arnold Eric's talking about masculinity from a physiological standpoint. So in this modern era, there's all these discussions where people have about what the masculine man and the alpha concepts and this kind of stuff. Arnold Ehret literally talked about those topics from a physiological perspective. And what he was saying was in this, what has started to become normalized, which is even more so since Ehret wrote this 110 years ago, is he was talking about the bald, the how and not to say anything that anybody that's that has that situation. If losing your hair, lost your hair, even if you've been on this path, and in certain chronic situations, sometimes it's hard to get exactly what you want back, kind of thing. But what Eric was talking about as an observation was that dynamic is because of the horrible diet of humanity that this we're not supposed to lose our hair. We're not supposed to not, it's like this practice. He was basically saying you're not supposed to shave and this kind of stuff, that these are all culturally based. It's kind of cultural and based on, there's no reason to shave besides you've been oriented to do it and you think you feel better with it. The last time I ever shaved, because my beard, this is kind of my beard. I don't have one of those where I grow a big old beard. It kind of gets here and it stays right there, which is interesting. But I just remember the last time that I ever actually shaved with a thing. I had been practicing for a little while and I shaved. And 2 hours after I shaved, I could feel it was so uncomfortable. I could feel the hair coming back in through my skin. And I was like, I just made the decision then. I was like, nah, this is dumb. I'm not doing this anymore. It's stupid. Because it's
Yeah.
like there's no reason to do this other than, and when you start looking at cults and looking at these kind of like ways to it's like there's a lot of compliance tests that are built into society. And one of those in certain Western societies or societies that have privileged the bald face and the bald head is it's like taking away your manhood. And that's kind of what Eric was talking about. He talked about the Samson out of the Bible, that concept of he was a guy that had his locks, and a woman talked him into cutting them off, and he was like a Superman, just super
Yeah.
strong. And a woman convinced him to cut his locks off, and all his power went away. He became like a sickly, weak man. And so that's what Eric's getting into. It's yeah, he that's where there's certain things that Eric gets into that I call that like the advanced stuff. That's the advanced topics when you start getting into whether it's talking about skin color and hair and all this kind of stuff. That's that those are usually topics that some people can't handle. It's more advanced stuff. But yeah, he called a beard a secondary sex organ.
Mm.
That's how important that is. And so yeah, so I'm in favor of humans with hair and being
Yes, yes. Now, somebody recently asked me, okay, we have so many questions. Guys, Please, Spira only has so much time. It's too many questions. We have a lot of people watching now. All right, somebody recently asked me though, why are there so many raw vegan men that are bald? I don't know how to answer that, but I did notice there are a lot. Maybe it's just the bald ones started YouTube channels. I'm not sure. No, because I mean, it's true. There are, and I don't know. But do you say, because what you just said made sense, like you can't really get it back once they went bald before they went raw. So like, is that what's happening here?
Yeah, there's certain, so uh, the concept of genetics
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. It needs, for me, the foundation of the concept needs to be filtered through and re-understood through the principles of the mucus diet healing system and Arnold Ehret's work and the eating for our species specific diet and that kind of stuff. But I liked, which I think I heard Dr. Morris say one time, but the concept of inherited weaknesses that you inherit. So, and because when people talk about certain diseases or come through your parents and run in your family and stuff. And it's like, well, it's not, there's certain weaknesses. So if you had parents that both had weak kidneys, then yeah, you could be born and have a child that has weak kidneys. But that doesn't mean they have to be weak for the rest of their life if you know what to do to strengthen the kidneys or to strengthen the pancreas or whatever the situation is. Uh, and it's the same thing even with with gray hair. When somebody say my little piece of gray, guess what? I actually had that when I was 18 years old before I started practicing the mucus diet, and so sorry, it is what it is, and it's like literally just stays in the one little spot, but yeah, so there's a
Yeah, same. I've had things. Oh my God. Sorry. I heard once on a video somebody said like, okay, have like a droop, like this eye is like a little fucked up, right? Like that, right?
mm,
Okay, so my eyelid is like lower on this side. Somebody wrote it's because she eats cooked food and she's inflamed. I've had it since birth, like birth. I was born like this. They're like, see, that's what happens when you eat cooked food. You get, bloated and inflamed, and your eye is fucked up.
yeah,
Okay, here's my picture of me at 4 years old with this. I was also eating cooked food then, that's true, but
yeah. Yeah,
like
there's
come on
like
now.
literally no correlation, but that's the problem. Well, that's actually one of the good things, the big problems to look at with the genetic theories is because there's so many things that will be blamed on genetics that is really it's based on eating, people passing things down. If you pass, if because if you have if you're really acidic and your whole body is all acidic and acidosis everywhere, and those acids have backed up, and your lymphatic system is stagnant, it's not moving, and there's a place, say, around one of your organs and it starts to destroy or harm that organ, because in order to mess your organ up, you have to be acidic and have those acids in there, and you have a child, then they're gonna have some of those weaknesses. You're passing that on, and that's why Eric. There's a whole chapter where he's talking about the importance of people preparing to have children physiologically, cleaning yourself up so that you can, if you can get rid of latent illnesses yourself and where you're not passing it on, then that'd be better for everybody, wouldn't it? You'd rather have a child that had less latent illnesses that they were born with than otherwise. But yeah, no, but that's kind of the epidemic that Eric's talking about, where it's just everybody has their thing. Like everybody's got a weakness. Not everybody's weakness is vanity based. So that's the thing here in this society. We're so conscious and over conscious about how we look and stuff. It's like, man, people wasn't 500 years ago. There's not mirrors all over the place and video. Like, we live in this super strange world where
Yeah.
we're videotaped 24 hours a day somewhere. And so we're hyper, that narcissistic type of thing is we're just hyper aware of how we look and stuff. But it's so for some people that might be their weakness. Now, you can do things to enhance if you do know you have stagnation up in your head region, or in my case, there was a lot of stagnation here. then there's things that you can do to help to move that lymph, and that can improve things. Or there have been people that will get their hair to regrow, or will get rid of the grays and that kind of stuff. So those case studies are definitely there. There's people that have regrown teeth and things. So it's just not
Do you
normal
believe that?
for everybody.
I've heard that, but do you believe that? Have you seen it or like do you believe people can regrow teeth?
Yeah, I think for us, it's very rare.
Yeah.
It's not something that, but I think to me it could become more common a couple generations down if of we clean our and we have some children that are clean, and then they
Yeah.
have cleaner children. Once you get down two or three layers deep, starting from like where we're starting at,
Yeah.
that's where I think we could have disease-free reality, just where
Yeah.
they won't even relate to the kind of stuff that we have seen and experienced. But yeah, no, I think that's it. There's other species and animals that have, third and fourth and all these different
Yeah.
levels of teeth that can develop. So I definitely think it's possible. Like I said, in our case, I think 'cause one thing the way I like to look at the bodies, how it prioritizes what to heal is the body has an intelligence. There's a body intelligence that is applied or that takes over when you start to do things that promote healing. So whether you get certain kind of fasting level or fruit eating levels or whatever you're doing, and the body heals things in the order that it wants to heal things in. And people don't like that because now you have to, as Eric says, get on nature's operating table and let go of everything. Because that's the other thing that people don't talk about enough is you can't heal if you don't get your emotional part of your things together. Like you literally have to just kind of submit to the process and let go and not worry about, if you're putting pressure, because some people they put a timeline, like they want to heal by a certain time. It's like, well, I better heal this by the weekend because I have such and such wedding to go to. It's like
Yeah.
what this teaches you is you got to cut all of that out. I'm not going. Sorry, I'm fasting. I'm healing myself. I can't make it to the wedding this time. I can't do this or that because you have to put that kind of, when you're in that condition, you're doing that type of reconstructive. It really is surgery. You're physiological, natural surgery, nature's operating table. And that becomes where the inner game, the inner monologue, that's where that the mindset gets so important because I mean it's almost like, and I used to say this or I explained kind of in those years where I would be going through this, where I would apply like a David Goggins level mentality to the healing process. But part of that is it's like I got really good at laying down and then not moving, it's like just not moving a muscle. It's like, okay, I'm just all energy. I'm fasting and laying down, and all energy in my body is going to whatever needs to be healed. But most people can't do that. They have unless Mother Nature forces them to lay down, which is a forced fast, which if that happens, then just be happy. Don't be mad about it. Like be happy that it wasn't a fatal forced fast. But I got real good at that in terms of bringing that kind of mentality that would normally be applied to physical feats or that kind of stuff, and putting it into what's really hard for some people to do, which is I just did a video I call Shut It Down. Learning how to shut it down, meaning you're not going to be able to get a hold of me on the phone. I'm not going to be checking email. I'm not going to, all these things that we're addicted to. And it's like literally you cut all of that off, and it's you and your breath, and that's it, you know. But that's where the deepest healing takes place in that type of mindset and that kind of reality.
Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing. Question from Darren. Darren wants to know if you would recommend any type of GI formula during the first month of transition. And if so, what brand or herb would you recommend?
So I would say in if you're it depends on how constipated you are and if you are open to doing enemas. We do lemon juice and distilled water enemas. Uh, so for me, those first few weeks, that's what you really want to be doing is the transition diet, finding foods that eliminate well, that create the natural bowel movements, getting that colon irrigation in there if you're up for it, doing the lemon juice, distilled water enemas. Like see what that does, because oftentimes that's enough, but if you get to the end of that and you're starting to notice, like, nah, I still got a lot of bloating, or I got just, there's a lot of acids, it seems like that's in your system, or cravings are real bad, or you're not having the kind of bowel movements that you should be having, that's when you could take something that, in the mucus diet book, Arnold Ehret has an herbal formula that was called Inner Clean. And what I recommend to people is formulas that basically, to my research, are the most compatible with that original Interclean formula. And those include the Dr. Morris's 2 and 3, either his stomach, I know it's called something else now, like GI Renew or something, but it used to be stomach and bowel formula, 2 or 3, and then the Puridyme cleanse powder is I do like that. That's some good stuff. Very close to like an inner clean level of eliminate, because you don't want laxatives. You don't want stuff that's is real laxative and that kind of stuff. More movers and binders, and that's what those couple formulas do. But I wouldn't mess with those until you've been transitioning for a
Yeah.
couple weeks.
Yeah, I didn't find a need for it because I got colonics and that's gonna do, and then a fruit-based diet, you gonna be cleaned out for free,
Yeah,
have some dragon fruit, have some cherries, you're gonna get a free colonic there. But
yeah.
I hear you because sometimes people, it depends on how constipated people are, so that's a good question out there. Okay, last question, promise. Now, people want to know, what do you use for your dressings? Because if you're not using nuts or seeds on a general daily basis, what do you put on your salads to make them taste good?
So I've done different things over the years. My big now that'll be the one place where maybe I use make like a creamy cashew dressing or something, is I found that that eliminates well. If I have a bunch of lemon juice in there, and so just make like a little piece of garlic, the cashews, bunch of lemon juice, and blend that up, then put that on a salad. Like that, actually, I've never had a problem eliminating that. There's not a one way that you can evaluate how well something eliminates is when you have your bowel movement, do you have to wipe or not? Because if the cleaner your diet is, you're not going to need to wipe much at all. You'd be like, oh, there's nothing there. But as soon as you eat that avocado or you have something that's kind of slimy and mucus forming, get it out, get out the toilet paper, because you're going to be wiping that residue, that slimy residue is left behind. But uh, but for years I did. Because I made a lot of natural, or I call them natural. I would make tomato sauces from scratch. Now I know some people, they're anti-tomato sauce because they're like, oh, well, that's so acidic and this, that, and all that. It's like, it wasn't my experience. There's a way to do it where it's not. I just didn't have that kind of experience with tomatoes where people are like, oh, it's so acidic, all this. Like
Well,
I didn't
some
have that
people
problem.
say they're anti-nightshades, and I never got into that because it's like, no, if God made it, it's okay for me. Like, I don't even understand that. Have you ever had a problem with
My
nightshades?
rule is really, does it eliminate well?
Oh,
And
yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Does it
so
eliminate well?
so if there's certain things that don't eliminate well for me, that's perfectly fine for somebody, that are mucus free, that is perfectly fine for
Yeah.
somebody else to eat. But if it doesn't eliminate well for me, then I'm not going to eat it. And that even goes for mucus forming items. So if you find a mucus forming item that eliminates decently well for you, meaning it moves through, it doesn't leave behind a whole lot of slime, and it doesn't leave behind a lot of residue, and then then you can use it, use it for transitional purposes. But if you're practicing the mucus diet healing system, you're always going to check in with the rational fasting methodology, which is very different from probably anybody else that talks about fasting. Arnold Ehret's rational fasting methodology is it's more he Arnold Ehret invented the term intermittent fast, but they stole that term from him and they disheveled it. So when people use the term uh, intermittent fast, it's not the original connotation that Eric was talking about. He was saying that eat a few days mucus free, and then have a day of fruit juice, or have a liquid day, and then come back to eating, so this intermittent fasting day, so not this like 24-hour concept of like, well, I 18 I fasted for 18 hours and I ate this kind of stuff. I mean, he had the one meal a day plan is in there. That's the context has just been kind of changed. But yeah, but that I forget where we started at, but
Oh, well, tomato sauce.
oh
The how
yeah.
you do your dressings.
Yeah, my dressing. Yeah. So yeah, tomato sauce. Then for a long time, I did do lemon juice and extra virgin olive oil. And again, that's the oil. That's another one of those huge things where uh, my thing with the oil had been, if you use it in moderation for the transition, and then eventually you get to a point where you don't want it. You're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to use oil anymore. But I'm not I'm not like anti zero oil kind of person as some people are. Uh, so yeah, when it comes to condiments in general, Eric's main thing is to stay away from vinegar, and in terms of condiments, salt and vinegar is actually literally and maybe like pepper, like black pepper. But those would be the things to like stay away from. But stuff like a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in something, or tomato sauce made into a dressing, or even he even has a peanut. So the reason that I find the something like the creamy cashew dressing okay, Arnold Ehret had this peanut dressing recipe that I don't really like, but it was basically take peanut butter, combine it with water, and like let the water kind of just basically let it turn into like a peanut dressing, and put that on your salad. And that was kind of again a transitional item, because that little bit of fat in that type of form, you can't compare that to, say, if you're eating some of these folks that eat two or three or however many avocados in a sitting. It's like when if you eat, it'd even be better to make a dressing out of the avocado, because again, you can put a lot of the lemon juice in there and season it up or do whatever you want to do with it, and you're putting it on the salad. It's actually going to eliminate a lot better that way than if you just got the big chunks of the fat sitting in there. And but overall, that's not a place where I'm super hardcore. It's just about doing what you need to do to transition. I'd even rather see somebody use a vinegar laden something that with no dairy in it, at least. But I'd rather see somebody get a store-bought vinegar-based dressing and use that if they have to in the first part of their transition, if it means that it's going to get them into eating salads and vegetables. Because and then eventually you're going, as you get cleaner, the dressing is going to clean itself up. But yeah, but that's
Thank you so much.
on that.
I know we only have a few seconds left. I did want to just ask you, because I never asked you this question, Spira, and thank you so much for your time. Thanks for spending 2 hours with us. I'm going to put all his links below. He has a private community. He has amazing books. Guys, somebody out there doesn't know who he is, and so today's your lucky day. So you go and discover a real one. He's really doing the thing. You see his skin is pristine, so you know he's doing it. Okay, everybody's commenting on your skin. And
Oh,
how old
thank
are
you,
you?
man. So I am 42. I'll be, what's the day? The 13th. So I'll be 43 in a month, in 2 days.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow,
so almost
wow.
43. Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so 42 and 11 months.
Yeah.
And Do you consider, this is the question I never asked you. Do you consider yourself a vegan? Like, do you call yourself a vegan?
Not really. No, I call myself a practitioner, a mucus diet healing system practitioner.
And I'm
That's
just asking
yeah,
for, because I never asked you before,
yeah.
why do you not call yourself a vegan? Because I know you don't eat animal products. I know that.
Yeah, it's just because part of it has been that title has been so mired in so much controversy and misunderstanding. I actually wrote I used to call one of my taglines, if you look at the history of my website, and I wrote an article on this. You probably be interested in reading it. But I used to say mucus free, the original vegan diet. And that was like my second tagline for my company. And then it was like that vegan thing. There was that period of time where it was getting so, because I wasn't into all the infighting and the people are, they like they was, and I got invited into. I could have been more popular than I am now if I'd have got into some of these fights and squabbles, and these people were making the YouTube videos cussing each other out and all this stuff. And I was just like, I basically just sat back and just had my juice and I was watching this like I'm good. I don't need to get involved in any of this nonsense because that's just, so I just lost a lot of respect for the vegan project as a concept, and it was just going. So then it started getting it was around that time where it was starting to get co-opted by corporations. And as soon as you go into a store and you're starting to see things that's like vegan, and it's like you've been co-opted. And that's what happened in the 60s. They co-opted the hippie movement that started off as a rational thing of people that were hardworking, brilliant minded people that were just trying to live off of fruit and live off the land. And they turned it into this thing of like, lazy drug addicts that have sex all the time. Like, and I saw that happening with the vegan thing, where they were trying to turn veganism into, which again, from the historical standpoint, the word vegetarian, I wrote this, like to study the history of the word vegan and the history of the word vegetarian. Vegetarian used to mean vegan, what vegan meant. But they literally, you had these ivory tower, these vegetarian organizations and journals, and we're talking late 1800s in Europe and in England. But they started having the same kind of infighting that happened like 10 years ago. They were having these debates and battles, and you had a handful of people that were vegetarian that wanted to include dairy and fish in the definition. And that wasn't originally ever the definition of vegetarianism. And so then other people pushed back. So it ended up creating this separation. And then
Wow.
it wasn't until the 1940s where the gentleman's name goes off my mind at the moment, but that came and was like, look, I they basically all he wanted to do was to have a section for in the vegetarian publication, Vegetarian Society, to be able to talk about recipes and sort of discuss the animal free dynamic of a vegetarian lifestyle. And they rejected him. So he just took the VEG and the EN and combined it. And he's like, okay, we're just going to do our own thing. And this is going to be based on an animal first, anti animal cruelty dynamic, and then it went from there. But then it wouldn't be, years later to where the modern incarnation and concept of the vegan thing as a cultural construct is it's just so all over the place. And it's yeah, I'm not so when I'm talking to somebody and they'll be like, oh, are you a vegan? It's like I'm like, when I practice the mucusless diet healing system,
Hmm.
because because all of those things, whether it's, the plant-based, vegan, fruitarian, uh, and even somebody that's starting off that has a little bit of meat still in their diet or a little dairy or something, it's all within the realm of the transition diet of the mucusless diet healing system. Operative word, healing system. So there's a system to it, versus, a lot of people that identify as vegan, they'll identify from a, the animal rights standpoint, and some come from the diet standpoint. And I'm good with all that, but the one argument that I have sometimes with some vegan folks is they try to make an argument and wake people, puss eaters, up from. I mean, it's like trying to get a psychopathic killer to stop killing. You're probably not going to persuade them by like, oh, check out this, the slaughterhouse videos. Like they have no empathy to touch. It's like you're wasting your time with that approach. What I found is, if you can get the thing about a psychopath is self-interest. So if they're sick,
Hmm.
if they're sick, if they're not good. I mean, look at I would say past presidents came to mind, but like look at people that went vegan, even if it was for a short period of time, because they had a heart attack. Because when it comes down to their health, if they can be persuaded or if they're pushed, and it's in their self-interest to survive, because the psychopath is very survival mindset based. So if they realize that, or if they convince that doing a thing will help them survive long term, they're way more susceptible to do that thing. Then the thing about this path, if you really apply the transition diet properly, and is over time, your empathy starts to grow. And so from my perspective, when I started practicing the mucusless diet, I didn't have any, I was the type of person that I could have killed my own animals. I had like, I had that attitude that a lot of those guys have. Like I had that zero empathy kind of psychopathic type of thing. But about 6 months into the practicing the mucusless diet, when I truly stopped eating meat once and for all, and I did a lot of fasting. I did do a lot of fasting early on in my, I don't always promote fasting as much, or like stuff I did, but I did a lot of fasting, which gave me I got a lot of downloads during those fasts, a lot of insights and revelations. And there was a point where I realized I had this craving for meat, and I'm like, what is this? And so I created this thing where I fasted, and simultaneously, and this was after I'd cleansed myself for a while, I fasted and watched a whole bunch of slaughterhouse videos, or at least what I could find, because this was way before YouTube. So I was like, you could download stuff off of BitTorrents and things. And so I had downloaded, there was that old Meet Your Meat that was made like in the 90s or something. I think Baldwin did the voiceover. You'd probably still find it. But I watched that, and for the first time I got it. And I just was there just like crying, but it took 6 months of hardcore transitioning to, it's like the Grinch, it's like he had to, before his heart could grow, there had to be a transition before that, so it's like before I could actually get that kind of empathy, I had to clean myself up a little bit, you know,
That's
but
good. Yeah, you made me think about it because I'm constantly making videos and reels and these shorts, like saying, don't you see what you're doing? But like, I'm talking to psychopaths. I'm talking to serial killers, like that don't care. So maybe, thank you so much. I think I'm going to do a different approach because you're right. They care about themselves more. So maybe the health thing is more important to get them to go vegan one day because people don't see it. They don't see anything wrong. They're like, yeah, animals are less than us. Yeah, they're made for that because they're not human. They're less than us. That's good. And you'd only get it when you get it, but
yeah,
you're not going to get it before you get it. Like, you know what
right.
I'm saying? Because the fasting
Yeah.
and you just had an awakening, and some of us get blessed to have this awakening, but some of us never do. But everybody wants to be more beautiful or lose weight or healthier. Everybody wants to heal. Nobody wants to be in pain. And guys, watch this one again because Spira he dropped a few bombs that it just went over your head. The nature's operating table, and just not rushing the process, trusting the process. Your body is so much smarter than your ego. So that's really important because I know you want to lose the weight or you want to heal, you want to whatever you want to do physically, but like you might have a tumor in your spleen that only the body knows about, you don't know
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
stop trying to, I need to lose 20 pounds before this weekend, so I'm gonna fast. And then what happens is you binge on shitty food, and then the whole thing is for nothing. So like, yeah, transition is key. Thank you so much, Professor Spira. You're amazing. I always love talking to you. I learned so much. Let's do this again soon. You're amazing. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. And please follow Professor Spira. You will not be sorry. His videos are amazing, and he will help you so much on this journey. Okay, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks for
Peace,
color
love, and bless.
coordinating. Love it.
Yeah, right.
Love it. Okay, bye. Thank you so much.